Hey everybody, welcome back to DIY Hi-Fi. Today we're going to be designing and building a pair of home theater speakers from the ground up using drivers from the legendary British manufacturer Celestion. This is going to be a really big project, so let's go ahead and start breaking down some material and I'll get into the details as we go. For my enclosures, I'm going to be using 3/4 inch MDF. I'm really familiar with this material, so it's my go-to, but keep in mind these are going to be really heavy enclosures when everything is said and done, so if you want to substitute for something nicer and lighter like a Baltic birch, go right ahead. I wanted to keep this build really square and keep sanding down to a minimum, but because some of our panels are so wide, I actually used some of my MDF to whip up a crosscut sled to keep all of our cuts really nice and square. If you had something like a sliding miter saw, that would really come in handy for a project like this. As you'll see shortly, we are going to be using the ferrite version of these drivers, which means they're going to have some pretty significant weight to them. So to help make up for that in strength, I'm going to actually use a double front baffle here. 3/4 inch double front baffle gives us about 1.5 inches material to recess and then mount our drivers into, so that we've got some good rigidity and we're not going to be worried about resonance on our front baffle. A crucial part of any well-made speaker is bracing, and so we're not going to skimp here. I'm going to add 2 really solid window braces between each of our woofers, and as you'll see a little later on, I'm actually going to add even more bracing near the top and bottom of our enclosure. This is going to help us in a major way by cutting down on panel resonance, and also just give our enclosure some rigidity, as it is quite heavy and it's going to need to be held together really well. While I'm working on these braces, one thing I always like to do is give them a small round over. This may or may not help with sound quality as the air passes through here, but one thing you can say for sure is that it's going to save you some scratches on your forearms as you reach through this enclosure while we assemble everything. Now that our front baffles are dry and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and start marking out my driver placement. This is something that was decided on during the design stage. With large format drivers like this, we need to keep the center to center spacing as close together for the best phase coherence. One thing that I can't recommend enough is a drilling block like this. If you guys are using Jasper circle jigs, it's really crucial that you've got your pilot hole nice and straight. Otherwise, you're going to wind up with more of an oval rather than a circle. So save yourself some time if you're not using a drill press and get yourself one of these. It will help you out big time. Something that I think really takes DIY speakers to another level is to flush mount the drivers. This gives a really professional and clean look. Now, unfortunately, with something like this Chiare horn, it's an elliptical shape, so we can't just use a circle jig to recess it. So I've actually created a step-by-step guide on how to flush mount irregularly shaped drivers. Whether that be this Chiare horn or any other shaped driver, my guide will help you step by step. It's really straightforward. Don't be intimidated by this. Anyone can do it with just a little bit of time and effort. Now, it's no secret that Pro drivers are built for efficiency rather than bass extension, but I've actually managed to get these down to 50 Hz in room using an extended bass shelf. The best part about the ports is that they're just the thickness of the front baffle, so we don't have to worry about folding lengthy tubes or anything like that. One of the most common ways I build speaker enclosures is to just glue and brad nail. It allows you to move fairly quickly, and the glue is generally cured by the time you're done assembling the enclosure. Unfortunately, that means going back and filling all those brad nail holes and sanding. With enclosures this heavy, I really don't want to be moving them around and sanding them all day long, especially in the summer heat. So I'm going to take my time, glue and clamp everything very nice and very square the first time so that we don't spend all day sanding. In most cases, home theater speakers are going to be hidden behind a projector screen or in the corner of a dark room, but I don't have a dedicated home theater, so mine will need to look presentable. I wanted to contrast the front baffle with the rest of the enclosure for a nice look, but matching veneer with a roundover can be really difficult, so I decided to separate them using a small channel. To do this, I've created this simple jig that will carve through the seams of the front baffle pieces. This will create a break between the veneer and the paint, and also gives the illusion of a floating front baffle. This was really simple, and I'm really happy with how it worked out. Just know that if you're going to build these, that the roundover portion is not necessary. With a constant directivity horn like I'm using, diffraction isn't a big concern, so feel free to leave hard corners. Before I mount my drivers in to take some measurements, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more bracing. You can use just about any type of scrap material you've got on hand. I'm actually going to use some leftover parts from my jig that I used to recess my horn, and I'm going to go ahead and glue and nail those into place. Let's take a look at these beautiful Celestion drivers. For the woofer, I've chosen the FTR12 3070C. I chose these because I really like the sensitivity and low end extension. Part of choosing a woofer is being sure the enclosure size will work out to get the tweeter to ear level and leave enough room for low end extension. These met both of those goals with just under 4 cubic feet. The build quality of these is off the charts with a heavy cast frame and beefy motor structure. For the top end, I wanted a compression driver that could cross over low enough to meet these woofers, so I went with the CDX14 3045. It has a really large 1.4 inch exit that will work really well with the Chiare horn. I decided on the Chiare PR614. This has a 60x40 dispersion and is built using cast aluminum. It's really heavy duty, and I also think it looks amazing. Crossover design was really straightforward with these well-behaved drivers. The big compression driver and the Chiare horn allowed me to cross over right around 800 Hz with third-order filters. I wanted to do something dark to contrast the front baffle, so I actually found this recycled black ash. On their website, it says they actually form the scraps back into a log and then cut it just like real veneer. Looking at it in person, it's hard to tell that it's not natural. The grain has depth and texture. It was cheaper than natural veneer, and I'm glad I took a chance on it. For the finish, I'm going to use something simple. This is a hard wax type of finish, similar to something like Rubio Monocoat, but this is probably the knockoff version. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It was really easy to work with, and it was about half the cost of Rubio. As I've mentioned several times, these things are extremely heavy, so I want something sturdy for the footing. I've used some really heavy gauge steel here. Nothing crazy, just some straight bars across the top. I'm going to shape them and add some feet that I found on Amazon, and then use some T-nuts to hold them into the bottom of the cabinet. Getting to hook these up for the first time was great. I'm really happy with how they sound. The low-end extension was impressive on its own, though for true full range in home theater you will want to use subwoofers. Voices come in really clear with movies and music. The dynamics that I was aiming for are there. I really couldn't be happier with how they turned out. Because of the use of pro drivers, they need very little power to get loud, which means driving them is a breeze. These would work really well with just about any power amp with the impedance staying above 4 ohms. With a bare finish using MDF, these are currently around $1,500 to build, which makes them a great value compared to commercially available home theater speakers. If you're interested in building these, the build plans can be found at toidsdiyaudio.com. I'm also going to include a file for DSP for those of you that want to run these active for more flexibility. Thank you to Celestion for sending the drivers, and thank you for watching.